Let's see here, number 5. Another point that we want to do, I'm thinking with the checklist, you probably want to have no more than 12 steps in your checklist, okay? Once you start getting over 12 in a checklist, what you're probably doing now is you're moving from a checklist and getting into an actual procedure, okay? But the checklists are just kind of the big overarching steps that you want to make sure people do. And then what you can do is come into each of the steps on the checklist and say, here's how you do it. Now you're getting into a procedure. Here are the 7 steps to do the first piece on the checklist. Here are the 4 steps to do step number 2 on the checklist. Now you're getting into an actual procedure. But the first part of this is just coming up with the checklist, no more than 12, but you want to have a checklist of the overarching activities or the overarching steps that they need to have in place to come out with an outcome. Again, here in step 1, there may be 7 or 8 things to do to fulfill that step, okay? Then number 2, there may be several things that they have to do, several little sub-items that they have to complete to fulfill step number 2 of the checklist. But again, now that's getting us into procedures. So I need an organized way to do all the stuff that I have to do. How do I systemize things? How do I begin to build these checklists? You guys, you must build a checklist for all of the repeatable action items that you do on a continual basis. This takes time, all right? This takes the thinking out, this takes the thinking out of it so you can use your brain for bigger things. Again, if we're not careful, when we come to tasks, even though they are tasks that we do every single day, we can come to those tasks, and if we aren't following a checklist, then we have to remember. We have to use brain energy. We have to recall, boot it back up, and bring that idea back up, and keep it in our head, and maintain the thinking of what we're doing. And then I'm focused on, okay, I've got it. I'm doing my steps. I'm doing my thing. Here I go. I'm doing this thing. And then all of a sudden, hey, Clay, you got a minute? It's like, shut up. You know, now I don't have a minute. And now of course, we have a minute, so we do something with them. And then we come back, and we've got to regenerate that energy in our brain, as opposed to just having your checklist. Clay, you got a minute? No, I don't right now, is the answer, okay? But if you do have the time and you go help them, you just come right back to the next step on your checklist, okay? Repeatable tasks can take hours each month to complete. When you don't have a repeatable system, because each time you do that repeatable task, you have to remember it. And it just takes up brain space. Let's face it, many times we forget steps and we pass over things and things fall through the cracks simply because we weren't efficient with it, because we've just kept it in our head. There's a book by a guy named Atul Gawande. All right, I want you to say that, Atul Gawande, all right? It's a book called The Checklist Manifesto. Okay, it reads, it's a pretty thick read, all right? It's going to work your brain a little bit, but you guys, it will set you free. He talks about checklists that he put together. He's a doctor, and he talks about checklists that he put together in operating rooms. He also uses the idea of checklists as pilots of commercial airlines. But man, it is a powerful book on the value of checklists. Checklists seem able to defend anyone, even the experienced, against failure in many more tasks than we realize, if we just have the checklist. Have you ever gone, how about this? Have you ever gone to the grocery store without a list of things that you need to buy? All right? You're going around lunchtime, or even better, you're going around dinner time, and you don't have your list of things you need to buy. So you're just kind of going up and down the aisles. Have you ever found that if you don't have a checklist, you tend to spend a little bit more money? You tend to go, oh, that looks pretty nice. Hey, that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to get that. Because you don't have a checklist that keeps you on target. All right? And so as a result, you tend to veer, you tend to stray, you tend to drift off of the intended reason of going to the grocery store to get the milk. And you end up spending $100 when really you just needed to go spend about $7. Okay? Again, checklists, things are so important for us. We need to break down each issue into specific details. The volume, catch this by Atul Gawande, the volume and complexity of what we know has exceeded our individual ability to deliver its benefits correctly, safely, and reliably. The amount of knowledge now that is out there, the amount of knowledge that is required for us to do so much with technology and everything, it's exceeded our ability to just keep it in, to have the capacity to do this all the time. And so we have to begin to write it down. So now I don't have to have the mental capacity all the time because I've written it down. And I can release and open up large areas of mental capacity to do other things, like actually lead my company. All right? Again, this is so much of the struggle with managers is they just don't have time to manage. They don't have time. They don't take the time to write things down. They don't take time to put together these checklists. And so as a result, when they look at everything that needs to get done today, they're kind of just crossing their fingers and really hoping that it all gets done. And when someone's not doing what they're supposed to do, here, just get out of the way, let me do it because I can do it faster. Okay? Again, it's a real common practice that we get into as leaders. Your checklist system is a blueprint for consistent success, as we talked about over here. It provides consistency. Checklists are meant to assist you with the things that are routine and everyday. That's where your checklists help you. As I've talked about quite a bit, again, there is probably, like 20% of your individual mojo that you bring to your specific job every day that is going to be very difficult to put in a checklist or to transfer to somebody else because you've got the knowledge, you've got the skill, you've got the experience. It's really pretty much your package that you bring to this thing. But that's only about 20%. The other 80% can be repeatable. It can be delegated. Other people can do these other things. Wouldn't it be something if we could find ourselves getting to a place where we are spending more and more and more time in that 20% of just your zone, being able to spend your time in your zone rather than having to do all of these other things. It begins with a checklist, okay? Stop trying to memorize everything. It's ludicrous thinking that you can do this. There's so much clutter of just meaningless stored information that we have in our heads. Stop trying to memorize everything. Write it down. Start your checklist. I love this phrase right here, okay? This is it. Most people don't like checklists because they are painstaking to design. You guys, that's true. Designing these checklists and the number of checklists that you're going to have, at the beginning it's like, oh my gosh, there's just way too many of these to do. Well, don't start with way too many. Start with the first one. Start with the first one that you need to do. I'm sure right now there's probably either on your team or an individual that you have that you're frustrated that they are not able to get something done the way you want it to be done. Start with that one. Start with that one. For you, if you were to go do it, what would be the top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps that you would do? Write it down in order. And now the next time that you ask this person to do it, say, here, follow this checklist. Do these activities as you are trying to accomplish the outcome. Again, if we're not careful as managers, we will expect an outcome that we don't help people get to. And then we get frustrated with them because we go, how come they don't think like I think? It's like, because they're workers. They're workers. They're not going to think like you think. You're up here at this upper level of responsibility. You've got more things on your brain than the worker has. The worker's coming to work. Remember, we talked about this. The worker comes to work saying, what do I need to do today? What is right in front of me? If you sit down with someone that's locked in a worker mindset and ask them, so what's your 3-year plan? They just have no idea. What do you mean? I'm just thinking about the next 3 hours. Okay, I'm just trying to get to Friday. All right? They're just trying to finish out the week. At the very most, a worker is able to think out 30 days, okay? Because they know they need money for this month. It's about as far as they can think out. Again, it doesn't make them bad, doesn't make them wrong. It just keeps them from being able to move up the ladder, okay? So, again, most people don't like them because they are painstaking to design. They're not much fun at the beginning. It somehow feels, now this is a key thing too, and I love this piece. it somehow feels beneath us as leaders to actually write out step-by-steps. Well, I don't want to offend Andrew by putting together all this step-by-step instructions on how to put together a video. And I don't want to go, because I want him to be creative when he does his video design and all that kind of stuff. I'm using Andrew because he's actually behind the camera right now. He's the guy that's actually doing the video production. But we were just talking about this morning. Okay, now we need to make sure that when the white comes up at the beginning, it says Clay Staires, okay? But it also needs to stay winning in the workplace. And it also needs to say management training. And then not just the part that we're on, but the session. Session 2, part 1. And the thing is I said it, but I didn't write it down. And I didn't show. So now I've got to come back. And I've got to put together that checklist to help Andrew be successful, okay? So, again, just another case in point of me falling into the trap of just saying, of having an expectation. Yeah, I want you to do this, but I didn't put it into a system. Now that we have it in a system, we're going to be great, right? Yeah, we're going to be good. I just got a head nod, just so you know, all right? I don't know. Did he just throw something at me? I don't think so. So, checklists are meant to assist you with everyday routine things. Love this. They're not so much fun at the beginning. It somehow feels beneath us to use checklists. It's an embarrassment. We have this idea that people that are really successful, they are just moving through the day, just spontaneous. It's like they've just got this mojo, this magic, that they're just able to do successful things. Everywhere they go, they do, it just happens. It's some kind of magic. You guys, that isn't true. It isn't true. If you study successful people, and I'm not like this guy that's done a ton of it, but I have studied several successful people, and I have found that they are extremely organized. Extremely organized. They do things the same way every single day. Some people ask me, you may have asked this before, Clay, you seem to have the same thing on in every one of these videos, okay? Usually that's true because we are videoing at the same time every single week, and it just so happens that that's what I wear on that day of the week. Because I don't want to walk into my closet and go, oh, I could wear this, I could wear that. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I could just put on this and this would match, and I don't want to do that. I just want to walk in and I go, Monday, poof, okay? Tuesday, poof. That's what I'm going to wear. And if I'm videoing on a specific day, that's what you're going to see. So if I'm videoing, putting together 15 videos, you're going to see me in the same thing every single time. Clay, I think you need to get some new clothes. No, same thing every single time. Okay? As we grow as we talked about, as we grow in our responsibility, as we get promoted, as we grow in success, remember the price for success is consistency. It's responsibility. It's organization. And if you're not willing to pay that price, then I'll promise you that between here, where your capacity is, and here, where your responsibility is, you will fall into this place right here that I call freak out. All right? Because your responsibilities are bigger than your capacity. So let's continue on here. I love this. It somehow feels beneath us to use a checklist. It's an embarrassment. It runs counter to the deeply held beliefs that the truly successful are spontaneous and off the cuff. Guys, that isn't true. To support the need of a checklist, we've got to have checklists here as we are stepping into this management level. Catch this. He was finding in his hospital, he was at a hospital in Michigan, he started finding that people were dying. People were dying when they were going into surgery. And the reason why they were dying is because they were going septic. Why were they going septic? Because when they were putting in the IV, all right, when they were putting in the IV, they weren't wiping it down. They weren't wiping the area down with alcohol. And they were just putting in the IV. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Also, they were finding that the group that came into the surgery, to do surgery, they found that many times the doctor didn't know the anesthesiologist, and the anesthesiologist didn't know the assistant, and the assistant didn't know. They didn't know each other. And so as a result, they weren't communicating well with one another. And as a result, people were dying, dead, okay? Not mostly dead, all dead. People were dying because of this. So he came in and put in a checklist. And he said, okay, every time we get together, the first thing we need to make sure we all meet one another. All right? Hey, how you doing? Here's my name. Here's who I am. Here's what I'm doing. We have to meet one another. Also, what he did was he put together a system. He put together a checklist. When you're putting in the IV, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And they had to follow the checklist. And here's what happened. You can see right here. When the state of Michigan began using a checklist for central lines, which is that IV thing for central lines in intensive care units, its infection rate plummeted by 66%. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm like panicking. I'm going, okay, it's like I want to walk into surgery. The next time I go to surgery, I want to have a checklist with me. Have you guys done this? I do remember when I had knee surgery a long time ago. I had a big circle and a big X on my left knee because that's the knee that they needed to work on. On my right knee, I put wrong knee. Go to the other one. Because you've just heard stories, okay? So again, needing to have checklists. Now again, I've put here on our last page of the notes, I've given you an example of a checklist. This is a checklist that I have when I am done with a speaking event. This is the checklist that I go through before I'm done with that speaking event. There are 34 items that I have after the speaking event to follow up. If I don't do these 34 things on my checklist, then chances are really good I'm just leaving money on the table as a business owner. So I have 34 things. I don't want to try to remember what all these 34 are. I don't want to try to keep track of what they are. So what I've done is I've put them in a checklist. And then for each, as you can see across the top, for each speaking event, I have the name of the speaking event across the top. And then when I have completed that part of the checklist, I check it. So I need to be sure here that I collect payment. That's always important, okay? Got to collect the payment. Then I need to collect the self-evaluations. I need to get videos. I need to get video testimonies. I need to get written testimonies. I need to make sure that I send a card to the event planner. I need to make sure that I follow up with a video. I need to make sure that I follow up with the survey results. And all of a sudden it begins to bog down. Okay, what are the other things I need to do? I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think about it because it's on my checklist, okay? So we need to make sure, and what's great now is I'm able to pass this checklist on to my assistant, Sean. So now I don't even do the checklist anymore. Now I have somebody else doing it because I know he will think like me. He will think like me because I have written it down. So now what I can do, all right, I can give this to Sean, and then I can go away. But I am micromanaging Sean from a distance because he is doing the checklist. Does that make sense? Again, I'm sure that there are just a ton of things that go on in your office every single day. There's work that needs to be accomplished. It's the same work that needs to be done every day, over and over and over and over. It's called business. And it's called the work that we give to our employees. So what I want to encourage you to do as a manager, a way for you to begin to manage the work is not only identify it and organize it, that we've talked about in our last two sessions, but now we are going to begin to put together checklists so people will know how to do the work. So many times as business leaders, we tell them what to do, but we don't tell them how to do it. And again, we think it's beneath us. We think, well, that's what we've hired them for. I remember my very first teaching job as a school teacher here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was a science teacher, and the principal looked at me, and I said, okay, is there any certain things I need to do? Any, is there curriculum or stuff like that? And he actually looked at me, and again, I was a young kid at this point. He looked at me and he said, Clay, you're the professional. I trust you'll be able to do it. And at that point, of course, I thought, that's right, I'm the professional, all right? And I kind of liked being able to do my own thing. But man, that's a tough way to run a school when you're just kind of giving it over to the teachers to do whatever they want to do. And as a result, then you try to walk into, again, being in the teaching world for 15 years. If an administrator comes into your class as a teacher and tries to make changes in your classroom, oh man, talk about bowing up. I mean, teachers can get bristly really quick. What are you doing coming into my classroom telling me what to do? It's like, I'm the principal, all right? But because we didn't set that thing up, then we try to come in later and begin to manage people, and people can get really upset with that. So once again, the value of checklists, we are now transferring our thinking to other people. It provides consistency. It provides clarity with a step-by-step system. It allows us to micromanage from a distance. I got to put this on here. Number 5, you want to have no more than the 12 steps, okay? Let's go with number 6. It allows you to micromanage from a distance. From a distance. And that distance can be at the beach, all right? Distance doesn't have to be just from over there on the other side of the room. Distance can be on vacation. I can go someplace and the work can keep happening because the work is put into a checklist. And again, the checklist is the first step in beginning to design your system. Okay, so I want you here, here at the end of the notes, I want you to begin to create your own checklist. And again, just take one task, take one activity that you know you need to get completed today. Take one activity and put that into a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 step checklist. For you to accomplish this task, you're going to have to do these 4, 5, 6, 7 things to get that task done. Again, in our next step that we're going to talk about in our next session is we're going to talk about, okay, now that we have the checklist, now we begin to dive into each one of these steps and put our procedure together. Because if you don't write it down, if you don't give them the step-by-step how to do things, I promise you, they won't think like you, okay? They won't think like you. As a whole, they won't think like you. Remember, 70% of the employees right now, all right? 70%, check this out, Gallup poll, 70% hate their job. 71% in our culture right now, in our workforce, are disconnected at work. They're disengaged at work. This is who you're working with, okay? This, again, is why I wrote the book, Just Don't Suck. If you just don't suck as an employee, you can stand out. I'm sure that you have 1 or 2 employees in your office right now. You're going, Clay, I just don't understand what you're saying. This employee is just awesome. They're just great. Okay, that's cool. Are they great on purpose? Are they great because they are following greatness? Or are they great just because they show up and they do great things? If they just show up and do great things and you haven't quantified what it is that they're doing, then that's probably your first system that you need to do. What do they do that makes them great? So once again, this is our session 8 here in our management level training. We're talking about how to manage the work, and it's the creation of the checklist. You guys, I promise this will set you free if you can begin putting checklists together. And again, the idea is there's going to be a bunch of them, okay? There is going to be a bunch of these checklists. It's for every single task that is repeatable on a daily basis that you don't want to clutter your brain with. I hope this has been helpful for you, okay? If you have more questions, be sure to check us out on theleadershipinitiative.com, all right? We have a bunch of checklist templates there. Be sure to take a look in our resource section there, all right? Hey, I look forward to talking to you in session 9. We're going to break this down a little bit more, and we're going to talk about how to evaluate the work and how to verify that people have actually done what you told them to do without you having to be there, okay? So look forward to talking to you in session 9.